The Bengals take some time to make the people happy, and when they finally spend some money as expected, outcry from so many that think they know football. My reminder to everyone questioning the decisions, they know what they are doing, and yes, they have a plan. Even when it does not always make sense from the outside, this is their job. This is what they do for a living. So, as teams navigate free agency, pro days, local days, and eventually the draft, ask questions, that's fine, but no, they do know more than you. Today, Neil and I talk a few of those questions teams are asking this time of year, plus do a deep dive on local days across the NFL here on Scouting the League. Everyone, and welcome to Scouting the League. A fantastic episode last week with former Tennessee Titans general manager John Robinson. If you have not listened or watched that one, make sure you head back to the archives, check it out. Insight on roster building, staff building, and his time with three really good front offices, all part of the conversation. While you are there, make sure you give us a follow and a subscribe, a 5-star review, and most importantly, share with a friend. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Megaphone at Fans First Sports Network, and on YouTube. Scouting the League is where you will find us on any of those spots. Before Neil and I jump in, Scouts, head over to thescoutingcommunity.com to get signed up for the exclusive Scouts-only group that will give you insight into what is happening across the scouting world while also protecting you throughout the entire process. Scouts only will be signed up for that one. Questions, you know how to reach me. Aspiring scouts, there is a spot for you as well, thescoutingcommunity.com for you. Just scroll down a little further, get signed up, and look forward to our kickoff call in April, where we will talk a little bit of everything in the scouting world. Joined today, as always, by Neil Stratton. Neil is at Inside the League on X, and his website is InsideTheLeague.com. His blog is SucceedInFootball.com, a great spot to get some really insightful content from the football world. I am Rodrik David at RightStepADV is where you can find me on X, RSAFootball.com. 6 years in the draft room for Atlanta, where I got to work in both the pro and college scouting departments. This time of year brings two completely different tracks with free agency and the draft. Depending on which side you are on, both equally important when it comes to team building. So with that, let's jump in. Well, Neil, let's first talk inside the league. It is an important time of the year, both for agents that have SRAs as well as soon-to-be agents that are getting ready for that 2026 draft, again, 2025 exam. What are you and Inside the League busiest with this time of year?
Well, we're less than 6 weeks out from the draft, so obviously it's a busy time. It's an exciting time for everyone that's involved with the game, especially as it relates to first-year agents or newer agents that are still kind of learning kind of where they are in the business and where their clients are and how to optimize them. Everyone hears about the top 30 visits right now. I mean, I think about 2/3 of pro days take place in the last 2 weeks of the month. And so that's obviously busy. And I think most of your rank and file draft fans are very aware of that part. But if you're actually representing players, some things are happening a bit below the surface. One of those things is the NFL local pro days. Not every team is having one, but that's one we kind of touched on a little bit in the Friday wrap last week. I believe there are 25 teams that are having this year, and it's a little different animal. And it's certainly not as cut and dried as the combine or what have you. And those things, there are a few vagaries that I think agents need to know about. And one of them is first of all, which schools are having them. We've got that schedule. We've got that list printed on the site. And then how do you get a kid in if you have a player who qualifies and you feel like would be a good fit there. And so that's difficulty as well. And so we're trying to kind of walk everyone through all those things. I know you've got a little experience with that. I know you've run those, for the benefit of agents out there who already heard my caterwauling last Wednesday regarding this. I guess it was Thursday.
That's a good word.
What can you add as far as Well, you got to work them in every once in a while. But what can you add with regard to if I'm an agent trying to get a player into a local pro day? How did that
Yeah,
work
it
when you were with
was
the Falcons?
again two really fun experiences as a pro scout, and I believe it was 20. I guess it would have been spring of 2018 and spring of 2019. Those years could be off by one. Again, I ran as the pro scout. I ran, organized, did everything for the pro day. Obviously, completely relying on our college scouts' grades. Again, I had not really watched anything. I was really relying on the grades of all these players that, again, our college scouts had submitted. Again, right off the bat, again, in Atlanta, we were automatically designated three teams that college teams that were automatically going to get invites regardless of anything else. For us, that was Georgia, Georgia State, and Georgia Tech. If you were a player on one of those rosters for your last year of eligibility, you were automatically going to be invited. So again, right off the bat, there were years where I think there was one year where because of the connection we had with Georgia State, I think we had 18 Georgia State players, and it's way more. Again, Georgia State maybe had 4 or 5 players that truly belonged there,
Maybe.
truly had a chance in the league. But again, because of a connection, and they're a local school. Again, that is always one of the things. If you want to call it local goodwill, again, a nod to the local programs. You're going to try to let some extra players in, whether they belonged or not. This is their likely one chance they will ever step foot on an NFL practice field as a football player. If they're going to come work in a different capacity, all right, make that argument. But again, this is their one chance to lace them up. Beyond that, in Atlanta, the network, obviously Atlanta's got a awesome metropolitan base of football where we could get a lot of players, a lot of good players from Gwinnett County, DeKalb County, Cobb County. Again, Atlanta football is good. Obviously, Buford, everybody knows Buford. They were going to qualify as well. And that is where I had a great mentor that had been through it a bunch of times, and Nick Polk, that helped me navigate. It's a pretty loose rule from the league perspective what
Super
that
loose.
metropolitan area is. And every agent out there, when a team initially comes back and says, hey, it falls outside of our 25-mile radius, challenge whoever you're talking to, submit it to the league and make the league tell you no. I had it. I think my record was 57 miles from downtown Atlanta. I got a player in 57 miles. Graduated high school. Again, it was one of the ones liked the player, wanted the player in. I think we submitted maybe 3 or 4 waves of players to the league office. Again, they give you a yes or no. Again, I don't remember a player being told no that ultimately came to it. Again, for the most part, the league, if you're going to abuse it, I think we had 70 players at our biggest local day, which I was told that was too many. That was my first year. Ran fine. I think we cut it down to about 55 or 60 the next year. That's a good number. You end up with, again, you'd like 6 to 8 with every position. You're probably looking, hopefully, at getting a quarterback or two. That was obviously the hardest position to find. Again, you want 10 offensive linemen so you can run through 2 groups of 5. You want 8 defensive linemen, 2 great groups of 2. Again, run some of that kind of numbers to kind of make sense. But again, with that metropolitan area, again, if you graduated high school, if you have a home address, again, if there is something you can tie to your metropolitan area, submit it to the NFL, make the NFL tell you no. Those invites go out again, depending. I was chomping at the bit to get him out as soon as I could. We waited till, again, really in Atlanta, I was probably on the front end getting them out right after the combine. Some teams wait until right at the end of March, quick 2 weeks, and again, make a decision, get here if you want to or not. The vast majority, 90-95% of these players are going to be undrafted free agents and tryout players. If you get draftable players, obviously we had Georgia right down the road, 7-8 draft picks from a class at Georgia. We were begging and hoping that they would just show up to talk, do interviews, fill out a questionnaire, let us see them in person. It's a great chance to get some one-on-one time with coaches. Even if they're just standing on the field, they're not going through any workout. That is fully expected. But it's a great chance to grab, again, a little bit of in-person extra interview time if they're still right there on campus. Again, Atlanta always did ours. It was like the 5th to 8th, I think, were the dates. And again, that's for most teams that are going to be right in those areas. But again, the vast majority of them are undrafted free agents where hey, let's see them in person. The great thing, if your player is a tryout player, get them there, have them show up, do the right things. That is where a tryout contract can really be, hey, we've got this one, again, more or less in the pocket, where if we need 15 to 20 players for our rookie minicamp tryout, we know this guy, he's been in the building, he at least knows where to park, he knows where our practice field's at, he's been through the locker room. Again, that can be a challenge for a quick 2-day rookie minicamp. But again, that's where a ton of value for those, obviously, UDFAs. You get your tryout players. Again, hopefully you get a few workouts from players that get drafted day 3 to kind of lead through the process. But again, that's really what it's about, is those back-end guys.
And then y'all did conduct a workout, right? Because we're seeing more and more teams have an event, but it's just kind of a come in, have dinner, maybe some interviews, and that's it. Y'all actually did a workout. What kind of workout was it?
It was, again, think of, for all you agents have been now or are going to pro day workouts, think of it the same way, only the coaches are going to run it instead of maybe a scout. Your offensive line, assistant offensive line coach, your D-line coach, they're going to put you through 5 to 10 minutes. It is going to be quick. It's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be filmed so they can go back and look. But again, there's probably going to be 3 to 4 players that they're going to be specifically looking at, that they want to see. Again, is this guy a tryout or UDFA? Is this guy UDFA, or will we talk about him in the late rounds? Again, it's going to be a quick position work, just like you've done at your pro day. Scheme-focused, outside zone, gap, downhill, man, zone drop, safety drop, whatever it is that team specifically wants to see from you. They're going to get a quick, again, 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're going to be done. And for a lot of these players, you get warmed up and you're going to get more tired getting warmed up than you are actually going through the workout.
Okay, so no 40s, no 3 cones, no short shuttles, no reps, no nothing like that.
If you don't have a verified time, you may do some of that stuff. Again, 90% of the players that come to a local day are going to have gone to a pro day. The only times we ever took in Atlanta were guys, again, maybe a D2 kid that we liked just enough. Hey, let's go ahead and get a verified 40. We'd run through. Again, it was usually 5 to 10 total players that were going to do anything. Maybe we needed a verified vertical, verified short shuttle. 40 was really the big one. You're probably going to get an updated weight. Maybe you're going to put your scouting assistants through a hand, arm, wing, practice measuring. But again, almost no combine testing. And there's a lot of teams that don't do any combine testing at all.
No doubt about it. Now, what about interviews? Did you conduct interviews on everyone who came through?
No. Interviews were going to be by coach's decision only. If they're going to have the list, again, a week ahead of time, a few days ahead of time, they're going to have, hey, I want to see these 3 to 4 players. Again, there's going to be time in the morning that they can do them as players. Again, you can do some stuff medically with players as well. Again, obviously you got to give them a quick one over to make sure they're, after they sign their waiver and all that kind of stuff to see. But again, if there's that player that's got a 6th, 7th round grade, they're probably going to get grabbed by a coach to, again, get on a board, just talk person face to face, and maybe answer a question or two.
What about, now, was there a meal involved, or did you just kind of bring them in, work them out, and send them home?
Nice brown bag lunch when you get done with everything. Grab your meal and hit the road. Some guys would grab it going. Again, we allowed them to sit in the indoor facility. Again, for some of these guys, they know the truth, and they're going to spend every waking minute in this NFL facility that they can. If that means eating a slow lunch, by all means, I'm going to kick you out at some point. But again, that some guys treated it that way. Again, more power to you. If you're a good dude, not cleaning up after yourself, hey, by all means, this is your shot to be in an NFL facility.
And did everyone get swagged up with like shirts and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, again, shirt. What you're going to get is a shirt and a pair of shorts. Again, everything beyond that is going to be for yourself. Again, one of the challenging things is some of these guys that have extensive taping procedures or hey, I need to do X, Y, and Z just to get myself ready. It's like, all right, well, that's not what this is. Again, you better be able to roll out of bed and do a workout if you want to play in the NFL. Again, for most of these guys, you're a tryout player. So, again, put all that aside. Again, you always get the rub. And again, that kind of player, it shows up in a report. Just like everything's being evaluated. If you are a tryout player, even a UDFA grade that is a PIA at a local day, guess what? You're probably not going to get another shot. So again, whatever you got to do, get your ankles taped the night before and sleep in tape. Get up at 4 a.m. and find somebody to tape you before you drive to the facility. Because again, you're just showing up that morning. For Atlanta, it was check-in was at like 6:05 a.m. Again, you better find somebody to get it done early, because again, that's not what this time is for. You're not that kind of player. We're not going to treat you any differently. And there were absolutely guys that lost out on opportunities in Atlanta because they were pains in the butt for any number of people that morning.
What about as far as medical? Can you do anything medically there?
Unless something's changed, when I was going through it, you could do essentially a physical. And again, in Atlanta, there were players designated like, hey, this is an undrafted free agent player that we like as an undrafted free agent. Likely we will sign him as an undrafted free agent. He's going to get something a little more extensive done. I believe that is still the rule. Most of the guys, it's a one-over. Again, the training staff has their questionnaire, has their stuff. If there's anything that they're concerned about, again, a heart, a knee, an ankle, again, just going to ask the question. You don't want guys falling over on the field, getting hurt, getting catastrophic stuff. So they're going to answer some questions. And again, players you like, players that are higher on a list, again, they're probably going to get a little bit more of a one-over. Again, everything has to be just done right there in the training room with your athletic training staff. But again, it gives you maybe a follow-up from a combine, a follow-up from their in-season stuff with their athletic trainer. It gives you a little bit more to prepare for prior to that player signing a 90-man contract and coming in and working out for you during rookie minicamp.
What about a player who maybe had failed a few tests on campus? Could you ask him to take a leak in a cup for you?
There is no drug testing at those.
And the results that you got, none of that was shared with anybody. Obviously, that was all
Correct.
In-house kind of stuff, right?
All in-house stuff. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think that covers most of the questions that we got last week. Again, it's kind of a part of the draft process that the media really hasn't really caught on to yet. There are still a few of those things, and one of those is those team visits. Now, talking about top 30s, were there any vagaries of how y'all did things, and were you involved in that as well when you were with the Falcons? I should say we should still call them top 30s on the Scouting the League podcast. I know it's not in vogue anymore, but anyway.
I call them top 30s. That's what we called them in Atlanta. 30 visits, top 30 visits. It's not the top 30 players. You're not taking – look, let's start with that. No team has a 1 through 30 list. Again, Dane, Daniel Jeremiah, like all these guys, Jordan, that do top 50s. Again, that's fine. Like that's their area. An NFL team never does. These are our top 30 players. No, you've got your draft board. These players are slotted these different spots. So start with that. So your top 30 is going to be just the top 30 guys we need to interview. In Atlanta, you were probably looking at 75 to 80% of those were going to be top 2-round players that you want to spend more time with. Again, on these players, top 30 visits, you're going to fly them in the night before. Again, a lot of guys are probably coming from a previous top 30 visit. Again, they're flying down from Cincinnati or Cleveland or across the country, and you have to try to match up schedules, which means there's going to be guys mad that they're waiting at the airport in a van, or meals are crazy. You're probably getting a meal, again, depending on the player, depending on the groups. Maybe you're eating with, again, me and James Bodenheiter, the scouting assistants. Maybe you're just sitting down at a Chili's at 9 at night, again, and ordering whatever you want. Again, Justin Simmons, one of the greatest top 30 visits was, man, he was like, you could tell he had gotten his shirt pressed before he had been there. Again, everything about Justin Simmons was professional. And it's like, hey, dude, like, we're just scouting assistants. You can loosen up a little bit. Like, no, he was there for an interview. He took it seriously. Yeah, he had some fun with some other guys. But again, you just think about that night before meal. Again, it's an early morning, the next morning, interviews, going through and talking to everybody. Again, sometimes pro scouts would be a part of interviews directors, college directors. If you had any area scouts, regionals, nationals that were in the building, they would sit in on them. Again, you get your 10 to 15 minutes, just boom, 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 boom. It is 3 to 4 hours of short interviews with everybody, OC, your position coach, player development, player engagement, strength and conditioning, athletic trainer, equipment, seeing the area. Again, it is fast and furious. Just like with every other part of the scouting process, each player probably has 1 or 2 questions that are probably different across everybody that you're trying to answer during that trip. Background issue, a question about the family, a question about an injury, a question about playtime, question about learning. Again, every guy is going to have a question that they have to answer for somebody. That's what it is. It's just another opportunity for scouts and teams to ask questions on those top guys. Again, if I said 75 to 80% were top 2-round guys, the other percentage, again, your 15, 20, 25% is going to be mostly day 3, late day 3, 2 undrafted free agent players where the recruiting pitch is going up. Hey, we love you. We've got a 6th or 7th round grade on you. But if you go undrafted, we would love to have you in it. That team views you as an undrafted free agent more than likely. Again, that doesn't mean 31 other teams do, but we here in Atlanta view you as a undrafted free agent. We're going to put the recruiting pitch out for you. Brian Poole started in the Super Bowl for us. Sherrod Niesman, really good player. Those were 2 guys specifically in that year as I was a scouting assistant that I really did a lot of the background work on it to get these guys through. Again, they were planned top 30 visits for recruiting purposes. We knew where we had them on the board. We knew we wanted to put the full pitch out for them. We knew, again, Sherrod, the conversation all through that 7th round was we knew there were some other teams having similar conversations. There was one other team that had a top 30 visit doing the same thing. Again, maybe we gave him a little more P5, whatever the contract. Well, he chose us. Again, obviously worked out for us. Brian Poole, obviously we drafted his teammate Keanu Neal in the 1st round. Again, we felt good about that one. But again, you put the full slate out for him, get him in the building, make him feel important, do your recruiting. And again, at the end of the day, chips fall where they may, and players and agents make their decisions.
So now, based on obviously the players you brought in, you had interest in, was it fair to say that most of the guys you brought in were because you had a great amount of interest and you just want to spend some more time with them? Or was it, yes, you were interested, but there were question marks about them, maybe from a character standpoint, that you felt like you really had a hammer on before you felt safe bringing them in the building as a draft pick?
Yeah, again, I don't think any player at any spot doesn't have a question that, again, you just want to keep doing more work on. Again, I remember that the year I had most experience with our top 30 visits, I was a scouting assistant. Guys like Miles Jack, Jalen Smith, obviously major medical concerns with that group. Darren Lee, Von Bell, all these players that is top. Again, they all had questions at some point. Some of them were maybe, if you want to say, less significant. Obviously, Jalen Smith had a huge medical question where we weren't going to get answers on that, but you were going to get a determination on a mindset of, again, how is this player going to respond? Is he, working his way back? Is he doing all these things? Again, I'm not going to say the player. There was a player who had a major weight question coming into the draft. And when he's with me and our other scouting assistant, James Bodenheimer, basically drinking cups of queso at the night before, like, again, yeah, we're just scouting assistants. Guess what's going in your notes when you're talking about this visit? You had a weight question, you're drinking queso. Like, again, I just only slightly on that because, again, man, it's still haunting. It's amazing I still eat queso after seeing the way this man went after the queso. But again, you have questions that you're going to try to answer. Like I said, there's some are more significant, some are less significant. But again, it is players. We've got 3 players in this tight group. We like all 3 of them. Who do we like the most when it comes down to it? Again, you start talking about splitting stacks on your draft board. They all have a 7.0 grade, a 6.7 grade, whatever it is. We need to know who's 1, 2, and 3 in that 6.7 stack. That way, again, on draft night, we feel really good about it. That is where you start breaking those ties, even if it's, for maybe down the line type of things. That's how a draft board is ultimately going to get shaken out.
Was there a time when they kind of sat you and James down and debriefed you both? So, okay, listen, we know you've been driving these guys around. We know you've been eating with them. What do we need to know about these guys that we weren't able to ascertain in the interviews?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a true debrief. Again, you were expected to put your notes in again at some point. We're going to have our notes on every profile. We're going to be in the same system. We're going to be reading it again prior to. There's going to, hey, we need to know this. Hey, make sure you pay attention to this on this player. It's like, again, pay attention to this guy when he comes in and orders the night before, or how does this guy interact with the rest of the guys? Again, you think about, I don't remember what team it was a year or two ago that brought in all the quarterbacks to see who was the alpha quarterback of the group. Again, in some situation, we brought a group of like 5 DBs in, and just, hey, how do these guys interact with each other? Does somebody kind of step up? Who's more talkative? Who's quiet? Again, you kind of get ahead of time. Again, like, hey, pay attention to this, and then after the fact, if it wasn't in the notes, probably just to pop into the office. Hey, when you had so-and-so, how was it with them? And again, I read your note on this. What'd you mean by that? Talk to me more about that. And again, so it was more of an informal thing. But again, the questions were absolutely going to be asked about these guys.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move to day 3, because I think that's a critical part of really anyone who's got a player who factors into that range. And there's a lot happening behind the scenes when it comes to. All right, welcome. Now it's a 3-man podcast. But it just is with regards to what's happening on day 3. You've already talked a lot about the recruiting of the guys that you were hoping to sign as UDFAs. When did you start contacting their agents? When did that conversation begin? I've always heard that it's kind of that morning of Saturday before things really kick off, because you're already looking to prime them for that fast rush that's happening in the latter rounds.
Yeah. Again, that week of the draft has really become the common time. And a big part of that is, depending on how the team operates, that may be when scouts, as they get their position groups, as you get your final roster numbers, hey, that's when the GM's probably going to have a pretty good feel. This is what we're thinking in the draft. That's going to shake out to these numbers. We've got to sign 3 defensive ends. We've got to sign 5 offensive linemen. This is what it's going to take to get us to 90. Again, for most teams, that's not going to happen until the week of. Some scouts don't call at all until that week. That's how I was my first year, and I felt completely unprepared. Like I was playing catch up that entire week then, because again, I felt like I was on phone constantly. I personally tried to back it up a little bit and start to have those conversations as soon as I could. Now, you're always working with limited information. Again, maybe it's, hey, I don't know this agent. I'm going to get them locked in. I'm going to have a conversation with them early. The flip side of that is there are a lot of agents who don't know their limits of, hey, I've reached out to you. Don't hit me every day for the next 7 days, 14 days. Again, don't hit them unless you have something new or relevant. Free piece of advice for all the agents out there that are going for the first time. They will reach out. They have your number. Trust me, they have your number. Again, if it's one April text unsolicited is all that they need to hear from you. Again, so take that for what it's worth. But again, at most, you're probably looking at a week before the draft. You're going to get reached out to. Again, the conversation, hey, we really like your guy. Again, whether they're lying through their teeth or not, or again, you're putting the recruiting. Yeah, we think your guy is going to get drafted in the 6th or 7th. If it comes down to it, if the worst happens, we really like him. This is our situation. These are the numbers. This is what it looks like. And again, piece of advice, take the phone call, have the conversation. I remember on multiple accounts, you call an agent, it's like, why you been calling me about UDFA? My guy's going in the 4th or 5th. Like, okay, like, I hope so. I really hope so. I like the player. And again, guess what? That agent who didn't talk to 32 teams about his UDFA player, again, on multiple accounts, he is now playing catch up because he didn't even have the conversation about the player. If they're calling, again, hey, yeah, I respect you. Great. I got you locked in. We think our guy's getting drafted. We do have you in mind. We'll take a look at it. Again, be respectful. There's been plenty of times where basically you're told to, go kick rocks. And trust me, it's going to hurt you more than it helps you. Again, hopefully your guy goes where you think he's going to. There's only 250 some players drafted. That leaves a lot of players that are going to sign UDFA contracts.
Now, every team seems to do this differently. How did the Falcons order things in the 2 hours after the draft? Were scouts given a position? Were you given an area? Were you given a budget? Did you have the salary precepts as well? How did all that work?
Yeah. So in Atlanta, it certainly changed from Thomas to Terry. And you're really day three starts. When you come into day three, you're probably going to have a short meeting that morning that's going to kind of set the plan for the day. Again, depending on how many day three picks you have, again, you can either be really locked in or feel like you got to really wait for the fourth or fifth. Sixth round in Atlanta, that's where you were going to get your numbers and you were going to start to do your work via text from the draft room. Good scouts, experienced scouts, and good agents without the league, fully coming down on anybody. There's a wink nod for good relationships that, hey, if your guy goes undrafted, I trust you, you trust me, we're going to be done. We got the deal done. Again, you're probably not going to get the numbers, final numbers into the sixth and seventh. Again, experienced scouts, experienced guys that are working their position, experienced agents know what the general numbers are going to. Again, that's all changed some since COVID time with guaranteed numbers, with roster or signing bonus numbers. All that number is going to shake out. For most UDFAs, good agents take the best potential to make a 53 or practice squad. Forget the upfront numbers. Again, P5 is great. If you're not going to be on that roster, there's no chance. Again, you're number 7 wide receiver, but you got great numbers. Again, that's up to you to take it. But in Atlanta, we were given a position. Again, you've got quarterbacks. We're going to need to sign one. We're going to need one tryout. You've got wide receivers. Usually the wide receivers were taken by 2 guys. We're going to need five undrafted. We're going to need 4 tryout. Again, you just go through the positions. Me, the legend Phil Emery used to have the defensive line. He would take the edges. No, actually, he took the interior guys. I took the edges. Again, we need 2 edge rushers. We want one a little bit more 290. We want one a little more 3-4 outside linebacker. We need 2 tryout players. And then again, we get our list of, usually you're working off about 10 to 15 players you like at the UDFA level, knowing that 5 to 7 of those are probably going to get drafted. Same thing on the tryout list. Then it comes down to, hey, who was it local day? Who did I like? Who's going to be, again, an easy one? What agent understands that this guy's a tryout and I can have him locked in here for a tryout, knowing that, again, the landscape of him being on an NFL team on a 90 is pretty limited. I'm going to take my chance. I can commit to a tryout spot knowing that, hey, Rodrik's going to understand if I sign a 90-man contract and not hold it against me. That's going to be scouts across the league.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, my understanding is there's a quid pro quo in the business, especially between scouts and agents who got kind of day 3 types. Were there times, Rodrik, where you maybe were friendly with an agent, you recommended a player to him that was a little bit off the grid, he signs a kid. Now, are you coming back around saying, okay, listen, I kind of gave you a recommendation here. I need him as a tryout guy, or I need him as a late UDFA. Did that happen? And did the agent usually play ball, or was he in that case saying, I got my guy, I'm gonna do whatever I want with him? How did that work?
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything. Again, and for me, having done 2 years in pro scouting where I was not responsible for signing undrafted free agents as a pro scout, I was working on a team needs board, helping in that. When I went over to the college and started recruiting and having to sign UDFAs, again, the track record I had as a pro scout really helped out. There were a couple agents where I knew if I made a call, we were going to be good. I could trust them. They could trust me. I could be real straight with them, real honest with them. And again, that goes back to just the relationship you had. So maybe it wasn't even this year where we recommended a player. But again, last year, it's like, again, I've just got a good relationship with you. Again, I can be honest with you. I know you. I'm not burning any bridges, and you could make that call and be like, "Hey, I need to try." Like, who do you have as a tryout player? And there was a situation again with COVID where the numbers were, you were struggling to sign undrafted free agents, much less find tryout guys. Where again, I got the first undrafted free agent I wanted, and after that, like by the time you get that deal done, the board's clean. again, I know who I'm calling, and they had my second UDFA player because I needed two. And it
Mm.
didn't matter ultimately at that point what grade we had on him. If we had a grade on him, we needed a guy to fill out the 90, knowing that he may get replaced in the next couple of weeks just because that was the landscape that year. But again, the principle remains the same throughout the years where, again, you can pick up the phone call, got a great relationship. I've been honest. I've been having conversations with them. So we're good to go.
Yeah, 20 and 21 obviously were a different animal due to COVID. Those were kind of oddball years. Hopefully, we won't ever see that again.
Yeah, tough year to sign guys.
Now, we also talk about how quickly things change in that 2 hours afterwards. Well, do you remember a time when you offered a guy a UDFA deal? He wanted to shop around. He came back, and that UDFA deal wasn't there anymore. And same thing with even with a mini camp deal. Did that happen as well?
Yes. Again, that was the conversation that it was usually you've got 1 minute, and we would put timers on it. Again, you want to shop there. Hey, for the most part, they're good agents. Most agents have it down to 2 or 3 teams. We know where we're going if the clock doesn't strike. Now I need to call, this team. They're waiting on their 1A. My guy is 1B. And so I make the courtesy call. Great, you got 1 minute to make it. If you don't call me back in 1 minute, this deal I've got to move on because you can't miss out on your guy. And there were absolutely situations where that player got passed on. Again, now he's calling. Well, I've got a tryout spot if you're interested in that. And again, they'll hang up on you. No, I'm going to go find somewhere else. Guess what? They're calling back in another half hour because they still can't find because they waited too long. Again, don't play hardball. Don't do that. Again, a lot of it goes back to whatever you've agreed on beforehand. You got to stick with it. I one of my most frustrating things was I had a deal done for almost a week. A player I loved, small school, defensive end, fit exactly what we wanted to do. First year agent. We go through everything. I talked to him 6, 7, 8. Yeah, again, my guy loves your situation. We're yours. If he goes undrafted, yep. Again, I was expecting this player to get drafted. All of a sudden, he doesn't. 7th round, 255, whatever it was, whatever number, last one. I pick up the phone. I'm calling him. Pick is in. It's like, oh no, I think we're going over here. Like, what happened in the last week? It's like, no, and then again goes completely silent. Now, the player made that other roster. He went through it, but again, don't think as a scout I didn't remember that for years to come when all of a sudden his player was on the board. If you got good players, scouts are going to come to you, but again, it's going to be a less friendly situation, less cordial situation. Again, just like with players, I've got my Rolodex, I've got my notes in the system on every agent I've ever worked with, and I know who I can't trust.
Now, were y'all typically a weekend after the draft mini camp team or a second weekend after the draft?
Atlanta was almost always a second weekend after, which meant that, again, as a pro scout, then in Atlanta it was your pro scouts, your college scouting director were, again, you were expecting to lose maybe 1 or 2 tryout players that you had week 2. Hey, they're going to get signed. They're going to go somewhere else week 1. Good. By all means, go take advantage of every opportunity if you are a tryout player. We encourage that. We expect that. And again, you've got your short list of tryout fill-ins. And again, the positions you're going to overload on those. You're going to bring in a couple extra guys if you lose one. Great. But again, Atlanta was almost always a second week. 2 practices, practice and a half. Really that second weekend to have your chance to prove it. And again, under Coach Quinn, when DQ was there, he liked to keep 2 to 3 roster spots open because, again, you dangle that carrot, you get the best out of players. The longer Q was there, it became, no, let's go ahead and fill out 90. Again, this is, if we have to cut guys, it happened. Again, you had 2 really good days under contract with the Atlanta Falcons, 2 practices. We're going to swap them out. We're going to do that again. So every team's going to do it a little different. Not uncommon to keep a spot or 2 open for those best 2 tryout players to kind of reward them, give them that carrot to go chase.
Sure. Now, if you lost a tryout guy to someone who maybe made a 90, did you replace him or do you say la vie, we'll just roll what we have?
Yeah, probably going to depend on the position, the roster numbers. Again, if it's a fifth wide receiver that you're bringing in, again, we're probably not going to worry about him unless there's somebody down the road at Georgia or Georgia Tech that, hey, they can just drive over here. If it's all of a sudden now we only have 9 offensive linemen, you got to go find a 10th so we can run 2 full groups. Same thing on defense. We got to have 6 linebackers. We need 8 defensive linemen. You got to fill out the number so you can run 2 full groups. That way practices can run smoothly, because you don't want, again, you just kill guys, going same group. It slows you down. You want to be quick and efficient at these practices.
Okay. Now, the number of tryout guys, I don't know that there's a limit on that. And I've seen some teams bring in 70, 80 guys sometimes. How many did y'all typically bring in, and why?
Yeah. Again, you're going to, depending on what your undrafted numbers, again, you think about it in terms of running a football practice. Again, we need at least 11 guys on offense and 11 guys on defense. And then, again, we need this many bodies and this many bodies to run a full rep of kickoff and kickoff return, punt return. So, again, the numbers are going to shake out in that way. You're probably signing 5 undrafted free agent offensive linemen. You're probably looking at 5 tryout players on the O-line. Again, maybe a 6th just to give yourself a little bit of flexibility. Same thing on the D-line. So you're going to shake it out in that way. Again, the 2016 draft, my first year as a scouting assistant, I believe we had 32 undrafted free agents, which was by far the most that year. That is a massive undrafted free agent class. That's the way the roster shook out. The tryout numbers were big, but not as big as they would have been had we needed to fill. Again, 32 players, you're almost filling out a practice with 32 undrafted free agents. So, again, we brought in a number of players because, again, Q liked a lot of people, liked a lot of competition. That number got cut down every year. I think the last year I was in Atlanta, we were at 15 undrafted free agents. So, again, you were looking at probably 20 to 25 tryout players just to be able to get through that practice.
Okay. And tryout players, let's say they're coming from California, you're not covering those expenses, correct?
You are covering travel expenses. Yes. You're going to get
even
your
for
flight
tryout
out.
Players.
Yes, even for tryout players. You're covering the flight. You're covering, again, they're going to stay probably in the team hotel, team dorm for maybe 2 nights. Again, and then you're getting flown home. All that travel is probably going to get done Saturday night of the draft. And again, that is as much compensation and coverage as you'll receive. If you're a local player, you're going to get mileage. All that gets sorted out. Again, always the players that, again, Kentucky's 8 hours. Hey, I want to drive down. You want to collect the mileage. Okay, I get it. Whatever. Again, you're not going to get pressed too hard on your scouting coordinator, whoever's booking the travel. But again, there's kind of a line, and you will get your travel covered though.
Okay. So take us through that mini camp routine. I presume they arrive and the first thing is physicals?
Yes. Yeah. Again, so in Atlanta, it was Friday, Thursday, you're traveling. And it's probably going to be, again, about a 4-hour window where every player, when they're booking travel, every player that's flying in, 4 hours, there's going to be 2 or 3 runners, whoever's down at the airport, checking players in. You're going to have your full list. All right, everybody arrived. We got our bus, head back to the facility. Anybody driving in, you need to be here at this time, be here at this time. Again, yeah, like you said, they're first things first, sign your waivers if you're a tryout player, sign your contracts if you're an undrafted free agent. Again, all those players are arriving at the same time. So, again, everybody's in the same boat, obviously just kind of 2 different paths. And then, yeah, like you said, physicals are going to be the first thing. More extensive physicals for those UDFAs, of course. Tryouts, just make sure they're going to make it through practice, make sure there's no major concerns. And then they're going to be right into meetings that night because, again, come Friday morning, Friday meetings all morning, whatever time your practice is, late morning. Again, you're going to be doing stuff Friday during the day. In Atlanta, Saturday morning, you're practicing again. Brown bag lunch. Thanks. Any movement, any changes, again, by about noon, any player that's heading back to the airport, you're probably getting on the bus and heading back to the airport to head back home.
I presume I think everyone who's seen Hard Knocks is familiar with the cutting process and who the Turk is and all those kind of things. I presume in a mini camp setting with so many players and not as premium players, it's less of a maybe one-on-one dramatic kind of, hey, turn in your playbook kind of thing. I mean, they're not even getting playbooks. How did you release those players? Was there just kind of a blanket thanks for coming type thing? Were there ever guys where you're like, we really kind of liked the way you looked, but we didn't have room for you? How did that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the 2016, we left some roster spots open. Again, it was one of the really fun things I got to do because the 30 tryout players were loading up on the bus, and Q, Thomas, whoever it was, comes, hey, go get these 3 guys. I get to walk on the bus and be like, hey, you grab your stuff. You get to stay here. Like, again, to see those guys light up, like, again, these guys had balled out. They had done everything. Awesome. There were situations where, again, a guy got grabbed and decided, hey, we really like you. We're at 90. Again, where are you from? Like, stay ready to go. Because again, either we're anticipating, we're expecting, maybe it's a veteran, maybe there's something hanging out there that, again, not everybody knows about, that, hey, we're going to be making a move. The cutting process, again, that's the same. That's one of the heart-wrenching things. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the building to hear that, hey, I was under contract, now I have to go home. Again, same thing as those players are back in the dorms, back to the hotel, getting ready to leave. The players that are on the roster are in the locker room showering. It's going to be a one-on-one conversation. Teams that almost universally across the board are going to go get those players. They're going to have a short but one-on-one type conversation with the head coach and GM to hear the news that, hey, you're no longer going to be under contract anymore. We need to have you get your stuff ready because, again, you're getting on the bus with everybody else to go home. A lot of those players probably had their own vehicles. They're going to get walked through the process. And again, then the conversations with agents and everything happen. And again, that's the unfortunate part about it. But again, you get recognized as the Turk, as the cut guy. And as it happened for me for several years, you walk into a room and guys are ducking behind, podiums and wherever, because unfortunately, being that guy comes with the negative, especially on Christmas Eve, which was probably one of the worst cut days I ever had. Two players on Christmas Eve at the facility, which, again, it's hard any day, but on that day, it's a holiday, so it's even tougher.
Man, that's amazing. All right, so again, mechanics of things. If I'm a tryout guy, I come in, I practice for 2 days. There's no thanks, but no thanks. It's just get back on the bus and go on home. It's more or less.
It's thanks. Good work. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about, did you often see agents come in and were they allowed to come and watch the proceedings during their rookie minicamp?
No. They are closed practices. Maybe you can open them up. I don't ever remember multiple years, all the years I was in Atlanta, those were closed practices for us.
Okay. Now we'll also see some veteran faces show up at around tryout time. How did that work? I mean, who kind of, was that a pro department call? And how many did you tend to bring in when you did do that, or did the Falcons even do that?
Yeah, no, we did it in some situations as so there were some for younger, I believe it was like first year players, didn't have a vested year, didn't have an accrued season. If they were on the roster, again, I think in Atlanta, it usually ended up being like 6 or 7 players. They were probably UDFAs that spent all year on the practice squad. They went through the practices, so you essentially included those players in the numbers and everything. And then after that, you could designate, I know a year or two, we brought in a veteran player, wanted a shot. The agent knew it was a long shot, but again, maybe they were a local guy, maybe there was a previous relationship, whatever the reason was. Again, you bring them in, they're treated just like a tryout player. For all intents and purposes, they don't fall into a different category or anything, and they have their chance to go through it. And again, in some situations that kept player on a short list, on an emergency list, on a, again, couple weeks down the road list. And in some it's like, this player is who we thought they were. They're not on the 90 for a reason. And, thanks. And for some agents, it was then, hey, our guy went through a tryout, he's still healthy and able to go. So again, it's good for those players. They show up on a list. They show up in the media. That's always relevant to be on an NFL practice field.
Okay. Anything else that you would love for agents to know that they don't already know about the tryout process, about the UDFA process, about the day 3 process, or even about top 30 visits that you can think of, Rodrik?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing for agents this time of year, it is the hardest thing to be patient and sit and wait. You can't wear people out. That gets your name put in a certain bucket that you don't want to be. If a team needs something, trust me, they have your number. Your number is, again, it's everywhere on every questionnaire that's filled out, your phone number, it's with the league office. If you have an SRA, it's out there for teams. If you have something new or relevant, text it to them. They can read a text. They can ignore a text. They can do anything. Again, don't wear scouts out this time of year. That's not going to be good for anybody. It's not good for you. It's not good for your players. If you have something, they'll hit you. Again, the hardest thing is to be patient from pro day up until a week and a half before the draft. Again, if you want to send that, cursory, hey, I saw you were at so-and-so's pro day. Just wanted to make sure you had my information. I'm his agent. If you need anything, let me know. Guess what? They will let you know. That's all the message you need until the time comes where any other conversation is going to happen.
It's a time of year when no news is bad news. If you're not hearing from teams, then it's really hard to generate that information, that interest. And at this point, there's not a lot of pieces of the puzzle that are missing. Obviously, we've got 2 weeks of pro days left. There are a lot of top 30 visits that will take place. But if you're kind of got a player that's on that fringe, then hopefully he's done enough at this point through all-star games, through his playing time, to spark some interest. And if not, it's just maybe it's time to start looking at 26.
Yeah,
it's the reality of things, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Again, it is a slow time of year for scouts too. Hitting pro days, getting through everything. They're getting ready for April meetings, and again, in a lot of situations, scouts don't know any more than they tell you they know. Again, scouts are waiting to get in the building, waiting to go through meetings, wait to hear from the plan from both the head coach and the GM. They will tell you what they need when they need it. So again, agents, tough thing to say. Be patient. Scouts are out there doing the work. They're always going to be doing the work. They'll hit you when they need them. And, at the end of the day, they're going to keep on doing their scouting, and they'll have their guys, their list ready to go when that time comes. So I think that's probably a wrap on 2025 draft info for this time of year. As always, hit Neil at Inside the League if you have any more questions. I'm at Right Step ADV. Again, lots of years as a pro scout, as a college scout. I've seen it from both sides. It's a fun time of year. Be patient, though. Just like we say, be patient with your players. Be patient with free agency. Be patient with your teams. Trust me, they have a plan. It doesn't matter. I talked about it with the Bengals. The Bengals have a plan. They got they got Jamar done. They have a plan. It may take longer than you want it to execute that plan. They have a plan. Teams have a plan. Trust them. They'll do the right things. Stay on the up and up with them, and everything will be good for you. Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file folder storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now.